All right, so are you ready for this deep dive? We're diving deep into Last Straw, this new Nollywood film. You've got your snacks. We've got those script excerpts you sent us, so let's get right into it. On the surface, we've got this classic rom-com setup, right? Mora, the successful businesswoman, she falls for Lau, who
Yeah.
is definitely charming, but maybe not quite chasing the same corporate dream as her, right?
Right.
But this is where things get really, really interesting, right? Enters, Regina, who is Mora's mother, and suddenly it's not just like a straightforward love story anymore, right? It's like
Yeah.
this whole power struggle thing is happening.
What's so fascinating about Last Straw is how it really flips that typical rom-com script on its head, right? It's not just about, two people falling in love. It's about family, societal expectations. We're talking Nigeria here, and just the sheer courage it takes to actually say, you know what, I'm going to define success on my own terms.
Okay, yes. Regina. Let's talk about Regina for a second.
Oh, yeah.
This woman, I'm telling you, is like a force of nature.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can just feel
Yeah.
her disapproval of Lau just leaping off the pages.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Regina, she really is key to understanding the whole the depth of this film because she embodies, she's like the walking embodiment of this tension that we see between these traditional values and then this more modern way of living, right?
Right, exactly.
And it's not just that she's some stereotypical overbearing mother, right? It's more than that. Her backstory, it adds all these layers to why she disapproves of Lao so strongly.
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hooked, I think, from the moment Regina delivers that line about Lau's gardening. You know the one I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
I hope you're not going to come in here one day and tell me he started gardening.
Yeah.
Me, Regina Lawson,
Yeah.
telling my friends, my son-in-law is a glorified farmer.
Yeah.
Ouch. That's harsh.
It's brutal, but it's also it's not just a dig at him, right? I mean, it reveals just how deeply Regina believes that success, true success, is tied to social standing. You know what I mean? It's that's her worldview, and that's really what's at the heart of what the film is exploring, I think.
Absolutely. And speaking of Lau, those script excerpts that you sent over, they really hint at how much Lau is frustrated,
Yeah.
with constantly being judged and underestimated, especially by Regina.
Oh, absolutely. And what's interesting is it's not just about their different career choices, right?
Right.
It goes deeper than that. It's clashing value systems, right? Regina, she sees Lau's passion for agriculture, and it's almost like she thinks it's cute. Oh, it's a nice hobby,
Right.
She doesn't see it as a real profession.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Which, I don't know if you've noticed this, but which actually makes those scenes where they do clash, where they do butt heads, even more intense.
Oh.
Because you can just feel Lau holding back so much, trying to keep the peace just for Mora's sake.
It's palpable, that tension. And I don't, the writers, it's not an accident. They're putting him very deliberately putting Lau in these situations where he's forced to bite his tongue.
Right.
But you get the sense that it's eating away at him, and it makes you wonder, right? Is he truly genuinely content, with his life choices, or is he is there some part of him that's sacrificing his own personal ambitions,
Yeah.
To make this work?
Right. Is he holding back for love? Or is there a part of him that's slowly starting to internalize all of Regina's doubts? It's kind of heartbreaking when you think about it, right?
Yeah, and that's what makes Last Straw so compelling, right? Because it's not just a light and fluffy romance. It's actually asking us to examine our own definitions of success.
Yes.
And what does happiness actually look like,
Right. And then where does that leave Mora in all of this?
Yes.
Because she's literally caught in the middle of this tug of war, you know what I mean?
Oh, total.
Between her mother and her feelings for Lau.
Mora's whole journey, I think, is about finding her voice.
Right.
She's in love with Lau, we see that, but those deeply ingrained expectations that she's getting from Regina, those are just so hard to shake off. It's classic, it's that classic struggle of how do I honor my family while still forging my own path? It's tough.
It's heartbreaking to watch, right? She's so torn between staying loyal to her mom and then this desire for a life that Regina just doesn't seem to get,
Yeah. It's this universal theme, isn't it? It's trying to break free of those expectations, right?
Yeah.
Especially when they come from your family.
Yeah.
But what Last Straw does, which is so clever, is that like they don't make it just about Mora's love life, right? It's about her own ambitions too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And we see this like play out in a really interesting way when Lau's business pitch, remember that whole venture capitalist
Oh
scene?
yeah, yeah.
It completely falls apart. He's like so passionate, so excited about Sproutly, which is his whole like agricultural tech project, but he totally overlooks the patent.
Yeah.
I was like literally yelling at the script when I read that part.
Right.
I was like, Lau, come on, you need a Mora in your life right now.
Oh, totally. But that scene, that's pivotal, right?
Yeah.
Because it really highlights, the clash between like Lau's approach, which is like we know, very organic, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this like cutthroat world of venture capital. They're like speaking two different languages almost.
Totally.
Totally.
And it's like, you just know, right, like you just know Regina would have a field day with that mishap.
Oh, 100%.
But here's what's so interesting. Mora doesn't tell her about it.
Interesting.
What's going on there? Like, do you think she's protecting Lau? Or is it more about her being afraid of how her mom's going to react?
See, now that's a great question.
Right.
And it's one that I really hope, all of you listening, like I hope you really consider this as you're watching. But like when Mora is like thinking about this, like should I tell her? Should I not tell her?
Right.
What do you think is going through her mind? Is it just, is she trying to protect Lau? Or is she afraid? Or is it something else completely?
Right. Right. It's like the writers are being so smart because they're like forcing us to actually like feel the weight of her decisions.
Yeah.
Right. And speaking of like, wait, let's talk about that scene where Regina, she like discovers Lau taking care of Mora after her accident.
Oh man.
Right.
That scene, that's like pure brilliance right there.
Yeah, it is.
Because it perfectly captures like the heart of this clash of values that we've been talking about. Regina, she's like horrified to find Lau like doing these like household chores.
Right.
Right. Like it just does not compute with her worldview.
Right.
But for Lau, it's like it's second nature to him. Like, of course he's doing this. Right. He's taking care of the woman he loves.
Right. And it's not just about the chores themselves, right?
Right.
It's about how Regina interprets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like to her, this is proof.
Yeah.
Like this is even more proof that he's like not ambitious enough.
Yeah. Yes. Like she's just completely missing the point.
Yes.
Of like who he is.
Yes.
As a person. Right.
And I think this is like, honestly, I think this is where Last Straw really, really shines. Because it's challenging, I think, like those really deeply ingrained societal expectations of like what a man is supposed to be, right? Like how a man is supposed to act. And Lau just like blows all of that up.
Totally. He's defying those stereotypes.
Totally.
And he's doing it in such a like genuine way. It doesn't feel forced. Like, it's who he is. He's not defined by like these big career aspirations. He's defined by, his compassion.
Right.
And his love for Mora, which makes like those moments of humor that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Yes.
Like they land even better because of that.
Right. Right. They're like sprinkled so well, I think, throughout the script.
Yeah.
Like, remember that part where Regina finds Lau like watering Mora's plants right after the whole accident? And she like literally assumes he's incapable of even boiling water.
Oh my God.
Like I actually laughed out loud when I read that.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's like,
but it's also like
it's so good.
Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good.
It's like they're able to balance, right? They're dealing with these like really meaty, complex like issues, but they're doing it with this lightness,
Totally. It keeps it from being too heavy-handed.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like it reminds us that like even when things are like really intense and dramatic, there's still always room for like a little bit of humor and joy in life, right?
100%. And that humor, it just makes those moments where, we do get genuine emotion. It makes it hit even harder. Like that part, I think it was a little bit later on where Lau, he finds out that the venture capitalist backed out.
Right.
Right. But he just brushes it off. He just tells Mora like, oh, it's fine. It's just a small setback.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder, like, is he just trying to like, put on a brave face or does he really believe that?
That's such a good question, and it speaks to, what we were talking about before about like the complexity of his character, right?
Yeah.
Like, is he just, is it all like, roses and sunshine, with him, or is he just really good at like, pushing it down?
Okay.
Is this like a defense mechanism? You know what I mean?
It's like he's almost refusing to let Regina, like, crush his spirit with all of her, like, negativity. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which honestly, like, I found super inspiring, to be
Yeah.
honest.
He makes it easy to root for him, you know?
Yes.
Like you're right there with him because he's going through it, right? Like he's got Regina, he's got this whole business setback. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot, but through it all, he never loses sight of like what actually matters.
Right.
His love for Mora. And that's really what shines through.
Yes. And then just when you think like things can't get like messier or more complicated, right? Regina goes and like removes all of Lau's plants from Moore's apartment.
Oh man.
Talk about like crossing a line.
Yeah. I mean that's a huge moment right there. Because it's like Regina is like desperately trying to like grab back control, you know? She's trying to like erase Lau from their lives, but of course it blows up in her face.
Yes, because then Mora finally like snaps. Right. And that line that she delivers, he makes me happy.
Yeah.
If you were a good mother, you would have noticed that.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
It's powerful stuff, right? Because
Yeah.
you realize like it's not just about, her standing up for Lau in that moment, right?
Right.
It's like she's finally like standing up for herself. Like she's like, I have a right to choose what happiness looks like for me, you know?
Yes. And it's like you can tell this is like such a turning point.
Oh, absolutely.
For both of them, honestly.
It's a pure.
Like Mora is finally breaking free, right?
Yes.
But then like for Regina, it's like this moment where she has to finally face like the consequences of all of her actions,
Totally.
And this is where I think we start to see a different side of Regina, right?
Yeah.
Like the script excerpts that you sent, they kind of hint at this like vulnerability that we haven't really seen from her before.
100%.
And it all kind of leads up to this like really powerful scene where she finally tells Mora about her past, about, Mora's dad, like the man that she thought was like, her person.
Right.
And it turns out he was like living this whole double life.
It's heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
Because it changes how you see everything. Like all of a sudden Regina's behavior, it makes sense. It's not that she's just being, this like overbearing mother.
Right.
She's terrified
Yeah.
of Mora getting hurt.
Yeah, like repeating the same mistakes, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so it makes you wonder, like at this point, can Regina move past this? Like, can she truly accept Lau for who he is?
Yeah.
Right. Not for who she's afraid he might be.
It's the big question, right? Like, how do you move on from that? And the film doesn't like give you an easy answer, right?
Yes.
But you do see these like glimmers of hope. Like, remember when Regina goes back to the apartment and Lau's the one who's there taking care of the plants, right? Like the one thing that she like
Loki hates.
Yes, the symbol of like everything that like she's judging him for, right?
Right.
And it's almost like in that moment she finally sees him, but she sees him how Morris sees him.
Yes. And that moment when she apologizes,
Oh yeah,
I felt that.
that's a good one.
Like that felt like genuine, like a real acknowledgement of like her behavior and how she's messed up.
Yeah, and we can't forget about like the whole thing with the ring, right?
No, the
In the beginning, like the ring that she gives to Mora has like her maiden name on it, right?
Right.
It's all about like independence, almost like a warning, right?
Right.
But then she brings back a different ring, like one that actually celebrates their marriage,
Yes.
It's Regina finally letting go,
Yes.
Yeah. She's like, you know what? Go define happiness your way, Mora. I trust you. I'm here for it.
It's like she finally gets it. Like love isn't about like control, it's about acceptance.
100%. And then for Lau, it's like all of his like, resilience, it finally pays off, right? Because remember Mr. Kazim, the client that like totally doubted him at first.
Yeah.
Comes back.
Yes. He comes back.
With a business opportunity. He's
Yeah.
like, you know what? I was wrong. I see you. I respect you.
Yeah. And he even mentions like the respect that Mora has for him.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like, that's huge.
yeah. It's like validation, I think, from like the most unexpected place.
Yeah. And it's so satisfying to watch because it shows that like success, it doesn't always come in the package that you expect, right?
Right.
Like Lau didn't have to become some like, corporate hotshot to make it.
Exactly.
He stayed true to like who he was, and that's what people responded to.
Yes. Like that authenticity just like shines through,
Oh, yes. And it's such a powerful message, like Last Straw is really a story about like, about staying true to yourself, right? Like love, success, all that. Like it shouldn't be about like trying to fit into some mold that society gives you.
Right.
It's about finding what truly makes you happy, even if it's like a little unconventional, right?
Yes. Oh my God, 100%. And I think this is like a good place to kind of wrap up. But as you're getting ready to watch Last Straw, like just remember to pay attention, right?
Yeah, go beyond the surface.
Yes, go beyond the surface. Look at the little things. Those are the details that like really I think take this film to like the next level. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And ask yourself, like, when you're watching it, like, what does success really look like? Like, to you, is it like, do you need everybody to tell you you're amazing? Or is it more about like, are you like fulfilled?
Yes.
Like, that's what I want people to think about.
It's been so great diving into this with you.
Yeah, this was fun.
And to all of you listening, until next time, keep watching those amazing